Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show, Let Her Out to Play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Welcome back to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. If you've been listening along, you know that we are in the middle of our adoption series because November is National Adoption Month, and that is so near and dear to my heart. If you have not been listening to the past few recordings that we've been doing, I have interviewed my 3 sons that we actually adopted. And so I just keep finding people that have adopted or they have been adopted themselves and they have a story. And my special guest today is my friend Jennie Landreth. And I'm going to tell you, I did not know that she had adopted a child until we started talking about me interviewing her for this podcast, because there's another connection that we have. And so I won't give all my secrets away right now, but it's just such a God thing, the way that He works out these details and gets the right people in front of me so that I can get the right people in front of you. So my guest today, like I said, is Jennie Landreth. She has been married to her husband, Mike, for 31 years. Her oldest child is adopted. And then she has 2 other children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
2 other children that are a little bit younger. She also started volunteering at Choices in 1991, which in our area is a crisis pregnancy center for women. And now she's on staff as the developmental director. So welcome, my friend, to the show today.
Thank you, Angie. Happy to be here with you.
I'm so excited. And I just know that my guests are going to be overwhelmed and thrilled. Like their minds are going to be blown by some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, because I have been well, not involved, but knowing about Choices for many, many years. And every year that I hear new things, my mind is continually blown. I've been to your facility twice. I've been to 2 of your annual banquets, and I took my husband this year, guys, and his mind was blown. So, Jennie, let's first of all start talking about your adoption story. So, can you just fill us in a little bit about that with your family?
Sure. It's always been on our hearts. My husband and I both, even before we were married, to that we wanted to adopt. So I always thought it would be, I don't know. I always dreamed of, oh, get a little girl from China or some, just some situation like that. And we ended up having a private adoption where a mom chose us through a local attorney. And then about 10 days, we went down to go pick the baby up and ended up waiting, and the mom changed her mind. And so we came home without a baby. And it was kind of a heartbreaking situation at the time, and devastated. And the attorney encouraged us, just put your name back out there. And within like 3 days, another birth mom contacted him and had chosen us. So we met with her. Just her situation. She was in an abusive relationship. She was homeless, jobless, just in desperation for wanting to give her baby a good life, and knew that she needed a plan B because the plan A wasn't working. And so that's how we came to adopt our little Abby. And the day she was born, we had custody of her. We were at the hospital with her that night. But it's interesting, I look back now, I didn't really kind of grasp the gravity of what was going on there, where this birth mother was just down the hall, just going through so much pain and sadness because she loved her daughter. And here we were, two rooms down from her. And our little Abby got passed back and forth, which of course now I understand how much that must have how devastating that is for a little baby. But we've learned a lot about adoption after the fact, and have just such a greater appreciation for God's redemptive work through adoption and how it comes from a place of pain, and then is such a beautiful picture of restoration, in God's plan.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Well, I don't know if you know this, but our second a child that we adopted, something very similar happened in that I was getting prepared. My husband and I were getting prepared to go to the hospital, and that birth mom changed her mind.
Mm,
Um, Now, as it turned out, over the weekend, she decided, yes, I do want this family
mm,
to adopt him. But there was that moment of heartbreak and pain that
mhm,
came through. And I love what you said about just knowing that, like, the birth mom, like, she loved her child so, so
mhm,
much. And just when I interviewed my one of my sons recently, he talked about that, and he talked about knowing that he knows that his birth mother loved him so much, and that is why she chose adoption for
mhm,
him, because she wanted the best, the very best for him. And our two youngest actually are siblings. Um, and so, he just, well, both of them really, they're like, we know that our birth mom loved us. And that is why she made the decision that she did. And we're
mm.
thankful that she at least chose to give us life. And
Yeah.
so,
And that, I mean, that's a good indicator too, just of your faithfulness and your intentionality in teaching that to them as they were growing up. Because our nature is to think more about being rejected than being accepted and loved. And that's such a it's such a crucial thing to really just pour into our adopted kids, is how much it's not just that we love them, but their birth parents love them, because they will always have that connection with their birth parents. It doesn't go away. It's and for them to understand that, like, I love hearing that your sons understand that and get it from the beginning. We were very intentional about telling Abby that. We tried to tell Abby as many stories as we can. It was interesting, even just as Abby was growing up, like when she was in middle school and started really caring about clothes and makeup, those were her questions. Well, where is my birth mother getting her clothes? Does she have makeup? Does she have a brush to brush her hair? Those were things that you could tell that connection was there, but for her to understand what her birth mother did, because
mm,
it's not the easy option. It's
yeah.
not. It's a hard option, but
Hmm.
I love that. She gets that too.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away the pain and sadness from the brokenness, but it
Yeah.
is such a beautiful picture of new redemptive love.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and also, our boys didn't know they were adopted until they were, I think, 12, 15, and 18. So our
Oh,
children
wow.
did not know for a long, long
Mm,
time. We felt as a family that it was the best for them because of the situations that they came from.
mhm.
And they were, I don't know. You'll have to go back and listen to my podcast on this, but they
Yeah.
were they were shocked. They had no idea, but they were like, it was almost like, okay, well, we're not going out to dinner. Okay, let's go do this. Like, we told them together, all three of
Hmm,
them, and it was like, okay, well, nothing's changing, right? Like, and when we said no, nothing's changing. We just,
hmm.
we want you to know. Um, and over the years, a lot of people had different opinions on what we should do. And isn't it like that in the world today that
Yeah,
everybody has an
and
opinion
parenting,
on
yeah.
right? And so for our family, we felt like it was the best thing. We prayed through it a lot.
Mm,
And when the time was right, we felt God's nudge, and that's when we decided to tell them. And so even interviewing them for the podcast, it was just interesting to hear their little hearts, and to just hear the vulnerability and the realness that they had, inside. And they have other siblings that are out there. So
mhm.
so I don't know what the Lord's going to do with all of that, but we're
Yeah.
just praying through it and being prepared for whatever may come. So tell us a little bit about why you even chose adoption in the first place. Because for us, we were not looking to adopt. But the Lord, in that way that He does, sometimes we have said multiple times, He just dropped a baby in our lap. Wasn't quite that easy, but nonetheless, what is your story behind that, friend?
Yeah. I really just I was raised in a Christian home, and so always was taught about the value of life, being created in the image of God, and God's adoption to us. And that I think is just it just was almost like second nature to me that
Mm.
we're mirroring what God is our a parent and like in our marriage and in our parenting in our life. And so it was really kind of more of a natural thing. I don't know that I have too much of an exciting story like he dropped this baby in our laps. It was just always something that we thought we would do. And when we began to experience infertility, and that was one of the hardest things I've been through in my life, really, because I always wanted to be a mom. And so I mean, after about a year of not getting pregnant, I was like, well, let's start the process. It was just kind of a natural, let's do this. And we even though we were still going through medical procedures to try to help conceive, we were also going through the adoption. And so it is kind of a funny story because if you look at pictures of us in the courtroom with the judge when the adoption is official, I'm also 6 months pregnant at that point, because God did bless us with biological kids too. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, my adopted daughter and my son were actually born in the same year. Um,
That's
so and it you know what? It all kind of meshed together for us. I don't
yeah.
really there were often times where I even found myself when I was talking to other moms and talking about having kids, I sometimes would say I had 3 kids, like I gave birth to 3 kids. I think I kind of forgot that I didn't biologically give birth to her. It just was such a natural thing for us. So,
Mhm.
I yeah, it's always been adoption has just been a part of my life since I was just a small child, and so it was a very
Mhm.
natural step for us to do. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if we didn't have infertility and we had our own children, it was still our plan to adopt at some
Yeah.
point in our life.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
and so for us, it like I said, it wasn't we had 4 biological children, and then we felt the Lord nudging us that we needed to expand our family. We never it wasn't on our radar that it was gonna be through adoption. And I mean, obviously the Lord didn't really just drop a baby in our lap, but it's kind of like it was very quick and it was very like passionate for both of us once we got the first call.
Mhm.
And then I'm just hearing what you're saying because we're just having a conversation here, but
Yeah.
I, I've always just said, I have 7 children. I still say I have 7 children. And even since the series has come out and since I started the podcast, I sometimes it's like, I don't like to even say, oh, these are the adopted kids because
Yeah.
I never differentiate between that. Like, and so
Yes.
at first it was a little bit difficult to even say it like that. But, I'm like being honest with people, right? That, we do have these 3, and especially since we're doing the series. But I don't like to differentiate between them because we don't. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever heard this part of our story, but a pastor friend of ours asked my husband one time, how do you love adopted children? The same as you do, um, your biological. And without skipping a beat, my husband was like, you don't. Like you love them more because
Yeah.
you know specifically that God has chosen you for these other children that he has. And I mean,
There
yeah,
are
it's
children. In
different.
fact, you're even you hearing this say that. Sometimes I'll read like a news story where it'll talk about a family and they'll say 2 adopted children and 4 they have 6 children, 2 are adopted or something like that. And what it makes me mad. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like that
Well,
doesn't need to be said because on their birth certificate it is a legal parent-child relationship whether they're
yes.
adopted or born, and it's just as strong for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and two, how the Lord adopts us into his family, into the
Exactly.
kingdom. And so I love that picture. And it's always been an opportunity for us to talk to our kids even more about their adoption and how the Lord adopts us in and different things. And this is just coming to mind, but before the boys even knew they were adopted, they used to say to us, because we had other friends who had adopted children, and they would say, we should adopt. We should adopt some kids. And we always just used to kind of giggle. And so I think for them, because the Lord put people close into our life before that we were actually doing life with that had adopted children.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like kind of segued into them understanding it and seeing these other families love these children so much that once we told them their story, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So you didn't give birth, but still like you're my mom, you're my dad. None of that
It's
changes.
Yeah, it's such a natural concept as a believer for me, knowing that
Hmm.
I was adopted. I don't think it seems weird or feels different at all. And it's interesting because there are so many times where we see moms at choices who when we bring up adoption, their first instinct is I could never do that, but they
Hmm.
don't have a clear picture like we do of the beauty of adoption and the redemption
Yeah.
of adoption. They see it as a negative thing, but I think like what you're saying without your kids and us too is that because of God's plan of adoption and that beautiful picture, it just feels like a natural thing to us.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It 100% is. And I think it helps my kids understand the love of Christ more because of their situation. And as we have explained to them, the beauty of God's love for us and how he adopts
Mhm.
us and he chooses us. And like we've chosen them because he's opened the door for that.
Yeah, and I think there were so many times right when we adopted Abby because she was in her birth mother was in such a difficult situation. There were people that would say to me, "Oh, she's so lucky to have you." And I would cringe at that feeling. And
Hmm.
sometimes then I would think, "Well, no, we're lucky to have her." But really, it's not about either of us. It is
Yeah.
such a beautiful picture of God's work of stepping into a broken world and saying,
Hmm.
"I have a fix. I have a plan B," and it's a beautiful thing. And that's always been just it never sits right with me when someone says that because
Yeah.
it is so much about God giving us that picture of what he's done for us. And
Right.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, this has come up a few times lately. I've heard people say this, and when I was a kid, and so I don't know what it was like, when you were younger, but I remember people, they would be mad at their sibling and they would say, well, you're adopted,
Right, like it's a bad thing.
like it's a
Yeah.
bad thing. And
Yeah.
so somebody said that recently, and I was like, you know what? I don't like hearing that. And they
Mhm.
were just saying it they were older and they were just saying it in general. I said, I remember when we were kids and people used to like threaten
Mhm.
their siblings with that kind of thing. I said, but it is such a beautiful thing. And then one of my recent guests was telling that she had been adopted herself. And then she has, I think, six siblings that did not get adopted. They stayed with the birth mom. And when she met them later on, one of them was like, you're the lucky one because you got adopted.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so she said, gosh, I never really looked at it like that. But the other kids,
Yeah.
had a very difficult life. And
Yeah.
so you just never know how the Lord's going
Yeah.
to work out the details in that for sure.
Well, our daughter's very sassy and I think there have been a few times where her brothers would throw that up at her and she would just shoot right back and say, "Well, haha, mom and dad picked me. They got
Yeah.
stuck with you."
Isn't that like siblings, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I really would love to know. I would love for you to tell us your story about being with choices, kind of explain to our audience. I probably chopped it up really bad, but explain to our audience what choices is, how you got involved in it, and what's going on there right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the how I got involved because that's probably the quickest piece. Just as I became an adult and I was in college, God really convicted me that if there were children being killed out in the streets, every Christian would come running to save them. But with abortion, it's happening in private, it's happening in secret. And how could
Mhm.
I go about my everyday life like everything was fine? So that was a conviction, and it actually came from watching the movie Dirty Dancing, which I won't go into how great. I loved Patrick Swayze and watched that movie a million times as a teenager. And then one day it clicked with me that that entire movie is based on the premise of a botched abortion and how I watched that movie over and over and over and never the lost life at the beginning was never on my mind, and that was a big conviction for me. So getting involved in choices was really just a step of saying I have to do something about that.
Mhm.
If I care about life and I say I love the Lord, then I need to do something. So that's kind of how I got involved with choices. I was 19, I was in college, started out just, dumping the coins and putting them in the rolling them in the paper and stuffing envelopes and those kinds of things, but just could not get away from the incredible work that Choices is doing. And it's just they've just always had my heart. So
Mhm.
really Choices, you have a birth mom like our birth mom, our daughter's birth mother, who was faced with obstacles that she thought would prevent her from parenting, whether it's financial or the support, whatever it is that someone would choose abortion, it's because they think they can't be a parent. Because nobody wakes up one day and says, "Oh, that sounds like fun. I'll have an abortion." It's a last ditch a solution. And so those obstacles that are in a mom's way to becoming a mom is the very reason that Choices exists. So
Mhm.
we try to remove those obstacles for them. If it's the financial, if it's the medical care, if it's the resources, if it's the education of how to be a mom. So the whole organization exists to provide what that mom needs so that she knows that she's not alone. And then when we tell her we're going to be there for you, not only are we there during the pregnancy, but we're there for the parenting. So we provide those baby supplies, the parenting classes, the connections, the emotional support, the connections to other resources in the community, whether it's housing or job training or anything that they need so that they
Mhm.
are empowered to become strong, loving, healthy, happy moms and dads. Because if we have that, then those kids are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I've been to the facility a couple of times and it's beautiful. I don't, how long
Yeah.
have you guys been at the location that you're currently at?
Oh, it's been 5.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
think you,
we're go
go
ahead.
ahead.
We're 40 years old. So we have been at quite a few locations, but this one, yeah, we've about four times the square footage that we had in the last one. And it is just a gorgeous place and so many
Yeah.
rooms full of diapers and baby supplies. And it's a really fun place to be.
I was shocked the first time that I came there. You guys had just moved to that facility. And the second time when I came this past year, Caroline gave me another tour of everything, and I was just my mind was blown of all the resources that you have for these moms and dads, the
Well,
training, the classes, the store,
yeah, our boutique.
your boutique,
It's
all
very fun.
brand new, beautiful items so that the mom knows she's getting new items.
Hmm.
Nothing wrong with used items. I raised my first few babies on lots of used items,
Yeah.
but that feeling of, they can get brand new things as well.
Well, that instilled in them, we're trying to communicate, which is they have value, they have worth. The baby has value and worth. So it's not just somebody's hand-me-downs, which I also raised my kids on hand-me-downs, have
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But
Mhm.
they are earning, the whole program is called Earn While You Learn. So they're earning these baby bucks that they get to spend in the baby store.
Mhm.
And again, it's empowering them to step into that role as a mom or a dad, as a provider. So they're not just getting a bunch of handouts. They're participating in the program. They're earning these things. And really, when they walk into that boutique, Angie, it's like it's night and day. So a mom who says, "I don't think I can do this. I can't afford my to support myself, much less a baby." And we say, "You know what? Let us show you. We're going to be here to help you." But they
Yeah.
don't know us. They don't
Yeah.
trust us. But when we can walk them down the hall and they can see the items, it's like we're saying we're already here. It's
Yeah.
all already here. And the relief that you can see, sometimes you can literally see it in her body. Because if she's worried about how am I going to car seat, and she looks over there and there's the car seat on the floor, that is just a powerful moment for them.
Mhm. I'm
Yes.
getting goosebumps all over, and I've seen it, but just I can only imagine what it would be like for those. Sometimes they're not young moms either, right? Like, what is the average age that comes into you guys?
It's over. history has been in the last probably 20 years that it really has been that 19 to 24-year-old, but times are changing. And even just yesterday, we were looking at our statistics, and currently 2/3 of the moms in the last month who have been to Choices are in the 25 plus range, which
Mm,
is really interesting because those you tend to think maybe have kind of figured their life out by now, and they're almost more of a determined that an abortion is what I want, and I'm not just
yeah.
choosing it out of desperation, but out of convenience.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just this past month, our largest was 24 to 29, and our second largest segment was 30 plus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. I think that will be it's shocking to me. I think it will probably be shocking to some of our listeners as well. Because I always felt like so I was a teenage mom. And so I guess I always thought it's mainly teenagers,
Right.
that come in there. My first series, when I first launched the podcast back in June, was on teenage mothers. So they weren't currently teenagers, but they were women who are now grown who were teenagers when they became pregnant. And my
Mhm.
youngest interviewee was actually 13 years old when she
Wow.
found out she was pregnant. She did
Wow.
keep her baby, and she and the baby's father were married when she turned 16, and they've been married over 20 years.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and you look at that, I think when our pregnancy center was much smaller, it was the
Mhm.
teens that were coming mostly.
Yeah.
But actually, now, as we've grown and we have the capacity to help more women, I think we're realizing how many more older women were out there that
Yeah.
didn't get help. And yet, because of Choices, they're able to come, they find out about it. And a big expense with Choices is our marketing. We are constantly having to put the word out that
Yeah.
we exist. So these moms, when they find themselves in that situation, they know we exist. They already know that we exist.
Mhm.
And that's really expensive.
When I came to the banquet in October and I heard that, and I saw some of the you guys did some video presentation of just different things that you do in order to promote the advertising. It was kind of shocking to me because I didn't realize, like, I'm not a big TV person, so I don't see ads on the TV or anything like that. And just some of the obstacles that you do have to face in order to get it out there ahead of the next guy who's saying,
Hmm.
hey, let's do something different besides make a choice to keep your child.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the messaging from the abortion industry is uh, fueled by a
Yeah.
lot of money. But God has really blessed our city to have Choices, and to have people in our city that believe in us. And I'll tell you a really cool story, Angie. That night, we asked for some of our financial support that we asked for was for bullets for billboards.
Hmm.
And one billboard to keep up for 6 months cost $7,000, which is just so much money. And we had a donor there who had a business and had traded their business for billboard ads. And they were so convicted that night, they donated all the billboard ads that they had earned over to Choices, which was a huge, substantial package. That was really
Wow.
exciting.
Yeah. That's amazing. But you know what? I'm starting to feel a little emotional right now. That is how God works.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and when you think about what somebody's it's a billboard, but that means a life.
Yeah.
Who's gonna grow up and have children of their own and impact their community and change the world for the better, all because of a billboard? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's so much more than just a billboard, but,
Yeah.
seeing God weave together all of these things because He has a purpose for a person.
Mm,
And that person, he's called them to something. And so he is preparing the way, and he's preparing their parents and their support system and all those things that come together. And it is a privilege to get to see that at Choices, to see how all those pieces come together.
yeah.
We had a mom come last, I don't know, I guess last spring, and shared her story with us. And her son is in the Marines now, And she talks about how this baby that I thought was gonna ruin my life is now my hero. I was like,
Yeah.
"Ah, it's just beautiful."
Yeah. Oh my. Well, we should warn the listeners to bring tissues when we talk about this kind of stuff because I mean, that's the beauty of the realness that the Lord puts in your heart, and you just get convicted over different things. And I was actually, Jenny and I were talking about this before the interview started, is that I took my husband this year to the banquet for the first time. And he just whenever I would make donations or talk about choices, he didn't understand the whole thing. I wasn't that articulate and explaining everything. And he said to me, he's like, "Well, I just thought it was this little women's, thing that you were supporting or whatever." But when he went this year, his mind was blown
Mm,
at what a huge blessing it is, and not even knowing like the powers out there that are pushing women to abortion. When we saw some of the commercials and different things, like he's like, "I've never ever seen that before." I just didn't realize the how easy they make it for, women to make that decision.
mm.
And we had decided on a specific amount that we were going to give. And he said, "Wait a minute. I want to do something bigger than what we decided."
Mm.
And it was just we took our 3 sons that have been adopted, and um, their mind was blown. They had no idea. Like, they don't comprehend it. And I think sometimes young men, especially because they're younger, they don't understand what this is all about, and they didn't understand until I took them this year. And then I
Mm.
took, my daughter. We have 1 daughter, 6 sons, and so, she was very emotional through the whole thing because her being the only girl, and she was like the second mommy to those boys when we
Yeah.
were, adopting them. And,
Hmm.
it was like that full thing that all kind of came together for our
Yeah.
family. And so, I can't wait for next year to come up
Yeah.
again, but just to get more involved. And I would
Yeah.
also like for you to share just a little bit more about, like, I you probably aren't going to just say this, so I'm just going to ask the questions, like, I would love to know, well, how many people do you have to staff? I know you guys have doctors and NPs and different things
Mhm.
on staff there. And then I know there has to be a huge financial contribution to make something like this run year after year. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we do. We have 27 staff right now. We hopefully I hope by the spring that'll be up to 30. That includes a full-time nurse practitioner who is actually on call 24/7 because we get calls even in the middle of the night for abortion pill reversal. So someone that's taken the abortion pill and has regret and wants to change their minds, they can call us and we have a treatment that's about 70% successful.
Mm,
So she's on call all the time. We have nurses on staff. We have patient care coordinators, which are similar to kind of like a caseworker, where it's a very holistic care approach that we have. So we're not just going to treat them and help them with the pregnancy side and they're homeless and we say, bye, bye, have a nice day. We're caring for them holistically and connecting them with other resources that we need. And then, of course, our parenting, mentoring them and stocking the baby boutique. So all those things go into what we do.
yeah,
And then we have a 4-person fundraising team. So we're trying to raise about $3.6 million to fund this work. And so it takes a team of us, but putting on events, meeting with donors, corporate business relationships that we have. So yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
yeah,
The exciting thing really is there's so many opportunities for people to get involved. There's so many ways if you want to meet with moms or dads, you can be right on the front lines. There's lots of opportunities for working behind the scenes. We have volunteers that come in that are helping us with behind the scene things. They never get to see the moms and dads that they're helping,
yeah,
but they really are making a difference. And everybody wants that, right? We're created
yeah,
that way to make
yes,
a difference. And I always think, I'm partial because I love choices, but they have to be all the different programs that exist in our city are phenomenal, the job assistance and housing and all education programs. But none of those make a difference if we don't get that baby born and
Right.
in a family that's going to connect them to provide those things. So it's having choices in our city is such a crucial part of having
Hmm.
a healthy city, happy, strong families, and that requires a lot of money. And we don't take any money from the state. We don't take any state or federal funds because those always come with strings attached.
Yeah.
And with those strings attached also means it can be yanked at any time. But we have so many people here who really do see kind of what you were saying, where you get to see that whole picture of how important it is.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're it's about $3.6 million to do all of that.
When I was meeting with Carol Ann several months back and she told me that number, I was just like, what? Like, and to just to know, I mean, it's not surprising because God is the owner of all of it and he will do what he will do.
Mm.
It's making me so emotional. But just that is just amazing that all of that comes through donations. And
Yeah.
year after year, the number goes up because things go up,
Yeah.
right?
Well, here's a fun number. Last month, 120 ultrasounds, and we only have a part-time sonographer. We
Yeah.
did 120 ultrasounds. And every time, that's a mom who sees her baby and has this usually this transformational moment where she walks into that room with a pregnancy and she walks out of that room with a baby, in
Yeah.
her mind. That's
Yep.
and what an amazing experience that is, and to provide 120 in 1 month, just that is helpful to see why 3.6 million does seem like a lot of money, but we are serving so many clients. I mean, last year
Right.
we served 7,700 appointments.
Mm,
So it's a huge need in our community.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, telling your story, talking about the beauty of what is happening at Choices. I just love it. And I did want to say, when I was at the banquet this year, the doctor, I think he was from Florida,
Hmm.
he talked about Choices in this area being one of the most prominent crisis pregnancy centers for women, like across the country.
Yeah. We're very blessed here in Chattanooga. We have a phenomenal our executive director has really helped Choices become a leader in this work,
Hmm.
and we're hopeful to really empower other pregnancy centers,
Yeah.
across the country. There are so many, but it's such a beautiful tie, Angie, between what Choices does and adoption. Because I look at a birth mother, we see them all the time, who they have no support. And if they have support, then they're able to choose life and choose a life to place their baby in a family that can give them the things that they want their baby to have.
Hmm.
And it always starts with that birth mother. Does she have support? Does she feel loved? Does she feel like she's in a non-judgmental place and that she's going to be taken care of? Then she doesn't have to worry about those things, and then she can begin to start making decisions for her and her baby that
Yeah.
are, you know, life giving. And that's
Yeah.
I love that connection, which is why an adoption is so special to me as an
Hmm.
adoptive mom, but also the work that I've been involved in and how many lives have been, and not just the baby, but the families, obviously,
Yeah.
the families, around that. So
Yeah.
I, yeah.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. I didn't, the more I talk about these things every week, it's like I get so much more emotional because it just comes up. For me, I was 19 and I wasn't, um, abortion wasn't an option. It wasn't in my mind, but had my circumstances been different, I mean, I was raised in a Christian home.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't really on my mind, but I can see where there are times that women feel like they have no support. They don't know how they would provide and all that. And then just what you
Mhm.
guys are doing there at Choices just makes all the difference. It is making such an impact for so many. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to see a snippet of that over the last about 5 years, and I just love it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for just giving us a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't on your mind when you were 19. I
Yeah.
think about that too when I was 19. It wasn't on my mind much at all. I didn't even notice it in that movie, but social media is such a powerful means of communication that
Yeah.
our 19-year-olds in our community now, it's on their mind because they're being bombarded with that message.
Hmm.
So, it's so important for us to keep talking about it. We have to keep talking about it.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to reach out and get in touch with Choices, what would be their best option there?
Really would be to go to our website. There are 2 websites that exist, so if they just do a Google search for Choices, they're gonna wind up on the page for our clients and patients. But team.choiceschattanooga.org is our website where we connect with people who are interested in as a partner or as a supporter or to volunteer. So if you Google choices, you'll see choiceschattanooga.org. So if you'll just stick the word team in front of it, TEAM, being on the team, then you can find us. It's a great way to connect with us.
That's awesome. Well, I will be certain to put that in the show notes and I'll have you
Thank
send it to
you.
me so that we make sure that we
Okay.
get exactly the right wording and they get right to the right site because I have a feeling that this is not all just for nothing, not for us to just have a conversation, but I truly believe that it's for someone who really needs to hear this story, to hear the story of the adoptions, to hear the story about choices, to hear the story. Maybe there's someone out there who has the means to make a beautiful, substantial contribution to the facility. And yeah, I want to make sure that we get that in there.
Yeah, it's super fulfilling and fun to think and know that you've
Yeah,
helped save a life. Like,
that's
doesn't get any
awesome.
better than that.
Wow, I 100% can agree, and
Yeah.
I'm just all giddy over it. So, thank you so much for being my guest today. I know that this was kind of last minute, but I appreciate it so much because it's been on my heart to tell our audience more about choices. And then when I found out that you were adoptive mom as well, I was like, "This is perfect. This is just
Yeah.
perfect. It's how the Lord works it out." So,
Thank
thank you
you,
for being
Angie.
my guest. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, my guests today, for being on, listening to the podcast. And like I said, I'm going to drop in the show notes how you can get in touch with Choices if you want to like find out more about what they're doing, if you want to be a contributor and hey, like why not? Or if you're someone who knows a young woman or a middle-aged woman who needs some advice, needs some support, we want to make sure that the opportunity is to get in touch with them as well. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on the Angie Amberzetti Show. Thanks, guys. Bye. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom. Keep showing up bold and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.